Mells with Superficial Gallery, and welcome to episode 11 of 31 Days with the King. This is a short series dedicated to all things Stephen King, with a daily upload on one of his works. We'll try our best to incorporate his more popular and well-known titles, as well as some of the ones that are maybe lesser known or weren't as well received by his fans or by critics. So with that, since it is the 11th episode, I figured we'd make this an extra special one, and we'll make it a double feature, right? One, huh? Yeah? Now, 1 and 1, they look just alike, right? So with that, I chose to do the 2 books in the King world that are considered mirror books, okay, mirror stories, and that is Desperation and The Regulators. So I'm going to try my best to keep these 2 together so you see the covers, and here we go. Okay, those covers make one big scary picture. Desperation is scarier than what The Regulators looks like. Now, you might be thinking, Mells, I saw Stephen King's name on Desperation, but Richard Bachman is on The Regulators. And you're right. We know that Stephen King did use the pen name Richard Bachman to publish several of his works. And when it was found out that he was doing that, then this whole story came about that Richard Bachman had passed away. And the funniest thing about The Regulators is that inside there's a little tribute or little backstory to Richard Bachman, in which, of course, after he's passed away, his wife finds this unpublished manuscript in a trunk of his and decides to put it out there. I think that's pretty cute and pretty funny. Now, these are called mirror books because they are the exact same characters, just in a very different universe, okay? So in Desperation, it's a pretty scary place, and the story itself is really wild, really nuts. It goes in really hard, really quickly with the gore, the horror, everything. In The Regulators, it's a little bit lighter, still pretty horrific, don't get me wrong, but it's not as scary. And apparently my dog has an opinion on it also. Sorry about that. It's not as scary a story, I guess you could say, as what Desperation is. So, same characters, same evil entity that's kind of haunting these characters in both novels, but very extremely different outcomes as they don't exist in the same timeline. And I think we've heard of this concept somewhere before, and I think it was season 1 of Castle Rock on Hulu. If you have not seen season 1, please be sure you go out there and watch that. Season 2 is premiering on October 23rd. Now, the series is being released as an anthology, so season 1 is not going to have anything to do with season 2. You don't have to worry about hurrying up and catching up on that before season 2 starts, but I highly suggest you watch it because it was an amazing first season to the story. And some common things here: same characters and perhaps more universes or alternate timelines, something like that going on in season 1 of Castle Rock. So do be sure to check that out. Now, Desperation, we'll start with that one. So this is the scary story to me. As I mentioned earlier, it starts right off the bat with the horror. It is set in a small town, Desperation, Nevada, where a pretty deranged cop kind of captures people as they enter the town. He takes them into the station. The town is desolate. It's almost as if no one lives there. It's very run down, it's very spooky. And we get introduced to the supernatural entity that is Tack. It is super scary in my opinion, gets in your head. Tack is very reminiscent to me of what It is, or some of you may really be more familiar with Pennywise, but one of those outerly world entities that seems to make their way into Stephen King works, and I really enjoy that supernatural trope that he writes on. Desperation, you don't have to read these in order, by the way. They were released on the same day, okay? And just there's no particular order, okay? So if you want to start with The Regulators, you can start with Desperation, whichever one you want to do. I started with Desperation and then I went over to Regulators. I found that to be a little more satisfying to me because of the way that The Regulators ended, and we'll get to that in a moment. But Tack is basically able to inhabit many different living things, so people, animals, whatever, and kind of possesses that thing that it enters into doing very horrific things. So that's Desperation. I will go ahead and say this. Many people don't get into Desperation, I've found, because it's very heavily influenced in some Christianity and some of that spiritual aspect that King will sometimes write about. I personally didn't mind it, but a lot of people just found it hard to get through because of those elements. So that's just a fair warning. If you're not really into that trope of his, then Desperation might be a little hard for you to get through, but again, it's still worth a try. I believe there is a version of Desperation out on Audible if you'd rather listen to it. That is narrated by Stephen King. I actually listened to the Audible version that was narrated by Kathy Bates, and it gave me nightmares. And I'm not going to talk about it anymore, okay? Because it seriously scared the bejesus out of me. No pun intended. So, moving on to The Regulators, which is the Bachman version. Okay, it's set in a totally different city. It does have reference to Nevada, but Tack sort of does the same thing, starts to terrorize this town. Now, Tack has an actual, or at least I perceived it to be an actual ending in The Regulators, whereas in Desperation it's kind of left out there as still this being out in the atmosphere, I guess you could say. So, one more note to make. Desperation was actually made into a film, and I believe it was a made-for-TV film. It's about 3 hours long. It has Ron Perlman in it, and it has Tom Skerritt. I've seen it a couple of times. It's not one of my favorite adaptations, but if you get the opportunity to watch this, if you run across it, do so, because King himself wrote the teleplay for this. And, I mean, sometimes you just can't go wrong when it's something that was put out by Stephen King as well, not just the source material as Stephen King's. Now, of course, I wouldn't be me if I didn't show you the cuteness of these photos. So, in Desperation, the photo that he has in here is super, super cute. It is this photo of him, and he's kicked back, relaxed, got a little pup under there visiting him, which I guess is fitting since my little pup decided he wanted to make a little bit of an appearance on this video as well. So really cute there. And in the Richard Bachman, in The Regulators, there's just this wonderful photo of him. I love it. It's cheesy. Him at a typewriter. And he's obviously trying to, I think, be a little secretive about who he is here. Right? So, and again, Richard Bachman died in 85, okay? His wife found this manuscript and decided to put it out. Just, he's so funny, that darn King. So, I hope you have enjoyed this double feature that we have for today. These two books, I really enjoyed them. I hope you will do the same. Like the video, comment below if you've read these or if you've actually seen the adaptation of Desperation. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Don't forget to subscribe to Superficial Gallery and ring the bell to get notified when new content is published. I hope you all have a wonderful night. And on the topic of Castle Rock, since it is coming back at the end of October, if you're looking for a podcast to listen to on Castle Rock, be sure to check out Castle Rock Historical Society. It's one of my favorite podcasts. It is co-hosted by Hannah Selector and Acadia Einstein. Really great content they put out on that channel. And of course, they'll be covering season 2 as soon as it comes out as well. I'll be back to haunt y'all tomorrow, and I hope that you enjoyed the Desperation and the Regulators. Have a great night. Bye.